Hey, I'm Yakov. Twice a year, Apple updates Swift with new features and improvements, and I summarize them on this channel. Some of the updates don't bring much by themselves, but hint at bigger things coming in the future. I'd say this time we're dealing with exactly that kind of update, and in this video, I'll explain my point of view. So, Swift 5.10, let's go. Wait. Before we do, I'll just ask you to subscribe to the Swiftbird and give this video a thumbs up. If you find it helpful, of course. That's what really helps this channel grow. And now we can start. Over the 10 years Swift's been out, we've seen different kinds of updates. But normally, they were just iterative additions and improvements across all areas. Like, the developers of Swift are doing some work, and when the next release branch is cut, whatever is finished by then gets into the new release. But this time, Swift 5.10 seems to be focused on improving one specific area: concurrency. The new concurrency tools arrived in version 5.5 back in 2021. Though it's been 2.5 years already, most developers are still kinda cautious about using them. I've seen quite a few real-world projects over the same period, and only a handful of them use some constructs such as asynchronous functions. None use strict concurrency checking, and many did not use anything at all. The updates in Swift 5.10 will mostly benefit those few of us who opted for strict concurrency checks. Because, as the developers say in the changelog, Swift 5.10 closes all known safety holes, which may result in data races. But again, that's only in the strict mode. There's yet another reason for this version of Swift to be more focused. I'll explain it in another section. In the meantime, let's have a look at what specifically Swift 5.10 brings to the table. Alright, now here's some code. As you can see, it has the main actor attribute, which in practice means calling methods of this class must be done asynchronously. That also applies to the initializer and static variable. But Swift 5.9 allowed direct access to memory, which might result in data races. Swift 5.10 can diagnose issues like this at build time. If you try to compile this code, you'll get a warning saying calls to the shared instance must use await. Another issue fixed in the Swift updates involves global and static variables. Because global symbols can be accessed from anywhere, they're not thread safe out of the box. If you want to make them thread safe, you can use one of the three ways. Turn your static variables into instance variables inside a global object, isolate them in a single actor, or make sure they're immutable and have a sendable type. But if you don't do anything, Swift 5.10 can still detect data races with global symbols. It will let you know about them so you can avoid any problems. And one final improvement to concurrency added in Swift 5.10 is the more accurate detection of out-of-vector evaluation. Sounds complicated, but really it's not. Have a look. Here you've got a struct with the main actor attribute. That means all manipulations with its instances must be done with the main thread. But also notice that one of the properties has a default value, so when you call the initializer you can omit that property. And here is where the problems start. While default values don't appear anywhere in this call, they're still evaluated at call site. That breaks the promise that all operations will be occurring on the main actor. Because of that, the parameters evaluation always crashes. Swift 5.10 with complete concurrency checking guarantees that the default parameter will be evaluated in the right context. In this case, it's the struct's main actor. Keep in mind, all those checks and fixes work only if you enable complete concurrency validation. You do that in your project's build settings. You can see that this time all the updates in the changelog have something to do with concurrency. But as I mentioned earlier, concurrency has been available in Swift for over 2 years. And ever since then, using all those tasks, actors, and async functions has mostly been optional. Many built-in methods exist in both async and completion handler variants. And some of the most important ones still don't support concurrency at all. For example, calling asynchronous functions from the viewDidLoad method is a hot topic on developer forums. All of that has got me thinking, why emphasize concurrency so much? And why do it now? It's only a guess, but I'd say this has something to do with the Vision Pro and all that real-time computing stuff. When you're seeing the world through a headset, apps can't afford to block the main thread and freeze, or load the device so much it starts dropping frames. Swift concurrency provides the tools needed to utilize the hardware resources more efficiently. Once again, it was only a guess, but I'm pretty sure we'll have an answer at WWDC when the next version of Vision OS is expected. In the meantime, let me know what you think, and let's move on. Just as always, a new Swift version comes bundled with an Xcode update, version 15.3 in this case. This time, the update proved to be surprisingly reliable. I've been using it from the very first beta with multiple projects of mine, and I can say that none of them had any build issues, and none of them needed any fixes. So Xcode 15.3 gets an approval from me. As always, you can get the update from the Mac App Store or download the installer on the developer portal. I'll leave the App Store link in the description. Speaking of the App Store, if Xcode 15.3 is one of the least significant updates I've seen in a long time, then iOS 17.4 is one of the most significant. This version of iOS brings several major changes to apps published in Europe, and those changes affect both users and developers. You see, a few months ago, the European Union passed a bill known as the Digital Markets Act. It was aimed at regulating large digital platforms, and basically required Apple to allow third-party alternatives for WebKit, Apple Pay, in-app payments, and the App Store itself. Keep in mind that third-party app stores are not the same as sideloading, so you can't just give your users an app file. As you can guess, Apple did not like the idea of losing that much control over iOS, so it's no wonder that the actual implementation quickly turned into an ugly mess. Apple has found loopholes in the regulation, which allowed it to technically comply with the rules while de facto offering terms that discourage developers from using them. Yeah, you can actually choose between the old and the new rules if you distribute your apps in Europe. I won't go over every detail, but basically the new rules make very little sense for the majority of developers. For example, if you want to establish your own app store, you need to have at least $1 million put aside. If you're not happy with Apple's 30% tax, you can use your own payment methods. But for that, you'll have to publish a separate app just in Europe, and you'll still owe Apple money, only now it's 17%. On top of that, under these new rules, you have to pay Apple for every downloaded copy of your app, even if it's not monetized whatsoever. If you want to get a feel for how much you'll owe Apple, I'll leave a link in the description. This should have been enough for Apple to make a statement. Yeah, we can clearly see they're not happy. But there's something else. In iOS 17.4, Apple planned to completely break web apps in retaliation. I have no other way to describe it, because the official explanation is a complete at the last second, and after getting quite a few complaints from the media, developers, and the European Commission itself, Apple backtracked on its decision and restored web apps the way they used to be. But we still don't know how the story is gonna end, because technically this old implementation violates the DMA. But anyway, let's move on, because next we got something much more exciting. And that more exciting thing is Swift 6. You see, version 5.10 we're getting today is the last milestone before the big release. In mid-March, a Swift 6 release branch will be cut from the main one in the repos of Swift itself and a few related projects. We're most likely to get Swift 6 this fall, bundled with Xcode 16. And in June, we'll be able to test both in beta. We can already see a few changes planned for version 6 in the changelog. I will highlight only one of them, but trust me, it's a big one. In Swift 6, when you declare throwing functions, you can finally specify concrete error types. Previously, you had to manually cast any error to the type you expected to get. But working with existential types like this is not very efficient, and often results in confusion. Like, you know what kind of error that method can throw, so why can't the compiler know that too? Technically, in Swift 6, all functions become thrown, except those you don't consider thrown have never as their error type. You can find quite a few other updates coming in Swift 6 in the changelog, but keep in mind these may not be all of them, because sometimes Apple doesn't share important Swift news until the WWDC. Swift 5, released back in March 2019, has been the longest running major version of Swift. While getting updates with full backward compatibility is definitely convenient, moving forward with features such as the more efficient type system or the new concurrency guarantees will require leaving some old things behind. Basically, it's gonna be a new chapter. About time, I'd say, because this year marks the 10th anniversary of Swift. That's it for today's video. If you found it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the Swiftbird. You can also support the channel at the links below, because that helps me make future videos better. Stay tuned for more, and until then, make your data fly.